Hey, welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to do a first impressions and overview of a couple of gimbals. So let me preface this by saying that I am a 3-axis motorized gimbal beginner. So I ordered the Moza Air 2 back in November after Tom Antos convinced me that I just had to get one. And let's just say that my first impressions weren't quite as positive as his, and let alone every other YouTuber who has taken a look at the Moza Air 2 in the interim. So once my Moza Air 2 finally arrived sometime around late November, early December, I unboxed it and impatiently waited for the batteries to charge, which, by the way, takes around 5.5 to 6 hours. First impressions were good. It seemed solid. Everything was well packaged. While it was charging, I read through the manual and practiced getting the camera balanced on it. After a little bit of trial and error, consultation with some tutorial videos, I got it balanced, not too many hassles. But fast forward to now, and as you might notice here, I've got the Ronin S. So what happened to the Moza Air? Actually RMA'd it, because the thumbstick was pretty much jacked up. It was really slack, and there was a lot of play in it, and it would get stuck in the down position. So I tried to kind of work around the flaw, but there were some other aspects of it that just seemed a little bit off as well. So I had issues calibrating it. The auto-tuning feature had trouble with heavy setup like this. Quick pans and the Q mode would, vibrate. The motors would wobble and kind of all of a sudden, like in Q mode especially, they would just vibrate uncontrollably until you shut it off. So all that on top of the pretty much jacked up thumbstick, I decided that I would RMA it, and rather than get another Moza Air, I decided to get the Ronin S instead. So far I've not had any similar issues with the Ronin S. The overall build quality seems a lot more precise than the Moza Air 2. The Air 2 did seem good, but in comparison to the Ronin S, it's just not quite up to the standard of this one. The plastic shroud that covers this section of the Moza Air 2 had a little bit of give in it, and it was creaky. And speaking about the thumbstick, this one is just really solid, well built, really precise, and no complaints with this one. I mean, it just seems like a level, several levels above in terms of quality control than the Moza Air. Additionally, I haven't really had any issues with this setup, balancing, calibrating, motor strength-wise, and sport mode with this one, like I did on the Air 2. All right, now I'm set it to light, and I'm going to go back to quick mode. Still doesn't like that movement. It's still vibrating. So the one issue that I'm having with the Ronin S has to do with the battery grip. So you have to power the battery grip on and then power the gimbal on. But for whatever reason, I can't get the battery grip to actually turn off. So you're supposed to be able to press the button once and it should shut off. But it seems to either not shut off or maybe go into a sleep mode. Maybe eventually, if you leave it alone for a while, it'll shut off. But I don't know if that's the way it's supposed to be, but that's how it works. So let's talk about the good things about the Air 2 that I like over the Ronin S is that you can make all the adjustments, just about every adjustment you want to the functionality of the gimbal on the actual gimbal itself, rather than having to go in the app. The Ronin S, in order to make any adjustments whatsoever, you have to go in the app. I mean, you could use it how it comes out of the box in the 3 modes that it comes pre-programmed with, but I don't see many people like really doing that. So I really like the dial and the LCD screen on the Air 2, and I wish that the Ronin S had these features. The infinite roll function is a lot easier to engage and control on the Air 2. You can set the roll to adjust the speed with the dial on it, which is a lot more exact and takes out some of the error in your steadiness as you operate it with a thumbstick, which you have to do on the Ronin S. Furthermore, in the Ronin, activating infinite roll requires a pretty deep dive into the app, and it's not really intuitive like how you do it. But really, once you set it up and assign that function to one of the 3 modes, that's easy cycling to that mode from then on. Neither gimbal can infinite roll with this setup here, A7S II, metabones, and Canon 16-35. They're just not strong enough. But both gimbals can support this, and so your more traditional kind of movements and whatnot, which is good considering that this is supposed to be support a payload of up to 8 pounds, and the Moza Air 2 supports over 9 pounds. Just know that you won't get every function with heavier setups. So the Moza Air 2 comes with 2 Manfrotto compatible quick release plates. Has some additional hardware that you can stack both plates for smaller cameras. And you can slide the camera onto the sled from the front and the back on the Moza Air 2, whereas on the Ronin you have to slide it from front to back. Not a big deal, but just thought I'd mention it. So the Ronin comes with 1 Manfrotto compatible QR plate and a riser block, which will accommodate smaller cameras, give it more height if you need. And then another great feature of the Air 2 is you don't balance it by sliding the QR plate forward and back. You slide the QR plate and it locks into the sled, and then you actually slide the sled forward and back. So that allows you to remove the camera and the plate and then put it back on, and it's still balanced where you had it before. Whereas the Ronin, you actually balance it by sliding the QR plate. So if you take the camera off, you're going to have to rebalance it. But you're only balancing that one. If you didn't make any other changes to the camera, you just have to rebalance that one axis, which isn't a huge deal. So in practice, it's not that big a deal. Additionally, the Ronin comes with this little this lens support bracket, which screws into the front of the QR plate, which supposedly helps the motors compensate for the weight of heavier lenses. So both of them have some compatibility with a variety of cameras in terms of record, control, iris shutter, and focus. The Sony Alpha cameras are supposed to work with the Moza Air 2, but I wasn't able to get the Sony A7S II. That, I didn't really spend a whole lot of time troubleshooting it, so that could have been user error, but I tried all the cables in there and I really couldn't get it to work. Another thing with the Moza Air 2 is that the supplied cables are pretty short, and you actually connect them kind of the back here and then around, which is fine. If you have this in a cage though, I wasn't able to get the cables to reach. So the placement of the I/O on the Ronin is much better, where you have basically your camera controls right here, which lines up with the I/O of the cameras. But on the one downside is that the Ronin S doesn't even come with the cable to control Sony Alpha cameras. It's a $20 extra, and it's out of stock currently on B&H. Additionally, the I/O port covers on the Air 2 are really hard to get back in place once you take them off. It's pretty annoying, whereas with the Ronin, they kind of just go back in there much more easily. Not a huge deal, but once again, kind of a quality control thing. But yeah, suffice to say, I don't really have anything to report regarding like controlling the camera with the gimbal. I'll get that, I'll do that in the future, but for the sake of this video, I wasn't really able to get either gimbals up and running in terms of controlling the cameras. So one cool thing about the Air 2 is that in the front it has a 3/8 inch thread, and also an adapter that comes in the box where you can adapt that 3/8 to a 1/4-20. So you could mount monitor arms or something directly to the front of the gimbal. I would definitely recommend having the monitor over here, so gravity is essentially tightening that screw, rather than if you had it over here, it's going to loosen. So battery life on the Air 2 is listed as 16 hours. In contrast to Ronin is only 12, although 12 is plenty. But once again, the Air 2 has bigger batteries and they last longer. On the flip side, they take more than twice as long to charge. So, the good thing about the Air 2 is that you can actually remove the batteries and put them in a separate charger, so you could swap batteries, whereas the Ronin, you have to have the whole gimbal assembled and then you charge it through the USB with a USB Type-C connector. I think the operating philosophy behind the two gimbals is really different. The Air 2 is sort of like an more open-ended, flexible, and maybe user-oriented experience, while the DJI ecosystem is sort of like Apple, and it's sort of like software-centric and kind of locked-down approach. I definitely like the Moza Air approach better, but for now, the Ronin seems to be like the better built device, and it just works better. So, you know, this is just my opinion and my experience. Like, this is my money. Like, I've paid for these items. Like, no one's sponsoring me or you know, giving me these products for review or anything like that. So I can just tell you, you know, my own experience with them, and I don't have a, you know, a preference. I don't really care if it's Moza or Goodson or Ronin or DJI or whatever. I just want the one that works the best. So in terms of actual like smoothness, and you know, both of them were really good. I was able to, you know, I have limited experience in just kind of running around the house filming cats and dogs and my fiance. Both gimbals will give you like really cool results. You know, it's like really, it's like almost limitless. I mean, not limitless, but I mean, you can really push the bounds of your imagination in terms of what you can do with these. They're much more flexible than like a Steadicam system, like the Glide Cam, or the bigger gimbals. You know, those big cage-like style ones. You can like the way you can hold them out in like flashlight mode and whatnot, just makes it easier. Like, you can just fit them into smaller places and kind of, you know, they're just smaller, and obviously they're smaller and designed to support smaller cameras, but you know, with that size allows you to really do some pretty cool stuff. So yeah, I mean, I was super excited to get the Moza Air. It kind of just, you know, iterated, I guess, on what the Ronin had done a little bit earlier in the year. Offered some neat new features like the LCD screen, and then the little scroll wheel on the back, and the ability to you know, go into the menu on the gimbal itself rather than have to pair it with an app. You know, it just seems like maybe in the future, and you know, once again, I could have just gotten a bad copy. I tried to go on some forums and really see if anyone was having issues with it. But it's a brand new product, and you know, it's taken them like a couple months now since they started taking orders to actually start shipping them. So not a lot of people have them yet, and a lot of people on YouTube are obviously getting, you know, review samples, and you know, none of them have had any sort of issues with it. But for me, I would say the Ronin has been out for more than half a year now, and you know, I hadn't come across anybody reporting any issues with it. So it has a little bit of a longer shelf life. Excuse me, a larger sample size. So if I were me recommending it, I would definitely recommend the Ronin S over the Air 2. But the good thing, you know, I had no issues RMA'ing it through B&H. They gave me no problems swapping it out. But, you know, it's your money, so do what you want. I just wanted to kind of give you my experience with them so far, and you know, I'd like to do some more videos on the Ronin S in the future. I'm not really sure what those will be like, because there's already been so many videos on the Ronin S, but if I can think of something new to do, then I'll do that. So thanks for watching this video. See you next time.